Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play Team. This actual play uses the 7th edition Call of Cthulhu tabletop role-playing game rules by Chaosium. This actual play is performed by adults and in an adult setting. While we try very hard to stick to language for all ages, listeners should know that this podcast may include mature themes. All content, including names, places, events, companies, and etc., that may bear resemblance to entities living or dead, is strictly coincidental. My name is Michael Diamond, and for tonight's game, I will be your keeper. Thank you for joining us again on another episode of the Old Ways Podcast. I'm your keeper, Keeper Michael, and we return to Horror on the Orient Express for a night of court, or night court, or possibly not. But we'll get to that in a second. First, we need to get to introductions. And so, to my right.
Hello, I'm Mike, and I'm playing James Robert Fraser, who is somewhat perplexed by what on earth is going on up the top of this hill.
Yes, it all seems very strange. The people here they're just not your type of people. They're a little too pitchforky, a little too torchy, maybe for Mr. Fraser's liking. But that said, we'll see what happens. To Mr. Fraser's right.
Hi, I'm Rena. I play Lady Elizabeth Fitzroy, and I barely escaped eating people.
That's okay. You'll get another chance, promise. At the end of the table.
Hi, I'm Giles, and I'm playing Simon Griffith, and I'm just glad I don't have to carry the professor anymore.
Yes, the two of you, what with the whole, backpacking that was going on, I was seeing a real nice 70s montage vibe there, but that time has passed. And so now we'll see if the professor can walk it out on his own. To Mr. Griffiths, right?
Hi, I'm Miranda, and I'm playing Maggie Bellinger, and I object.
Indeed. Likely several times, in fact. And last but most certainly not least.
I'm Martin, and I'm playing Richard Courtney. Richard's doing a bit better. Still not entirely sure what the pink things were, but, hey, he feels better. It can't be all that bad.
Probably best not to ask, given where you're at. So, in this square at the top of the hill that you've all arrived at, having seen Edgar Wellington now on trial, his rather solemn face staring at the floor, Miss Bellinger, you have announced yourself in a strong and willful voice that you are going to take up the charge of Wellington's defense. And the prince, this gentleman who's announced himself as this prince, who's visually you recognize perfectly well as the Duke from the waking world, he has pointed to you, and the crowd is now hissing and booing you as you're making your way up towards the stage. Should I assume that the rest of your compatriots are going to come with you, or will the rest of you be hiding in the background waiting for the results of the case?
Oh no, I think we'll stand by Miss Bellinger's side.
I'll go up with her.
Okay. The prince raises his hand out towards another member of the crowd. And he says, "Is there one among you who wishes to offer himself to justice?" And a myriad of people begin scratching and clawing their way towards the edge of the stage, reaching their hands out in hopes of being selected for such an auspicious role. And without a word, the prince points at one, and the crowd falls upon that man. And they begin, very quickly, beating him to death. There are hideous noises between the piles of humanity here. Things you've not heard since the war, Mr. Fraser. This surging mass of people eventually gives way. And what is remaining there is a skinless man, having been separated from all of his epidermis. And that sack of flesh is heaped up onto the stage. The prince accepts it, almost as if a Christmas gift, and he drapes it over this statue. As you get closer to the stage, Miss Bellinger, you hear him mutter some rather ominous, arcane words, and the flesh adheres itself to the statue. You see the statue begin to slowly breathe, a raspy, almost mechanical sound. The prince says to it, "You are the overseer. Determine the guilt or innocence of the accused at the conclusion of our proceeding." He then turns back to you. The crowd parts enough for you to get to the stage stairs. Maggie.
Yeah, I will make my way up there.
Okay. Now, the stage is rather large, so it's probably a good 20, 25 yards in square. It's a fairly large, and it's probably a meter or so high. You're up a bit from the rest of the crowd. You definitely stand, no matter your height, you definitely stand easily over most here. The prince gestures to Wellington. "If you'd like a few moments with your client, I'm willing to allow you some time."
Yes, that would be appreciated so that we can form our defense.
He steps away and begins talking and cajoling with the nearby people of Lausanne.
Does he seem to recognize Maggie?
You can't tell, honestly. At least for you, Maggie, he's not familial like he was with you in person. Not in the waking world.
Yeah. Well, we don't know if this is dream him or real him. Yeah, it can be anything. Gather round. Huddle up.
Okay. You all huddle up by Wellington.
Mr. Wellington, to what is it that you stand accused?
He shakes his head. "I don't even know what I'm on trial for. I arrived here a few hours ago. I was here just to get the scroll so we could have our meeting. And a bunch of the prince's men broke in to the shop, and I had tried to defend myself, but they tackled me and dragged me out. I don't understand it." He gestures towards the prince. "He and I are friends. We've shared tea together on numerous occasions. I don't understand any of this."
Well, he may have suspected that you weren't going to give him the scroll, or perhaps he just didn't want to pay for it, but I don't know how to tell you this, Mr. Wellington, but it hasn't only caused harm to you in the waking world either.
What? What do you mean?
Well, we went to visit your shop to further discuss the scroll with you and to show you the arm, as we had discussed previously, and we were confronted with a number of things, including, well, I hate to tell you this, but your corpse?
What? He looks at you, shocked.
So I'm very confused as to how the living you is here while the deceased you is there, and we happen to be trapped here. We came in to look for the scrolls to further hide it away from the Duke, because I believe that he has ill intent with it, but we have been unable to find our way out.
No. That can't be right. I'm not dead. No.
Well, yes, certainly that can't be the case if you're alive here. I'm not sure if you... How have you left this place in the past?
I just wake up. I just concentrate and wake up. It's fine. This is a dream. You just wake up. He lifts his hands almost as, in almost a praying fashion. You can hear the rattle of his chains.
Have you thus been unable to wake up then?
I haven't. I must tell you, Miss Bellinger, I haven't been able to concentrate on anything. It's like trying to make a salad out of a pudding. It's all mash. I can't. I'm so tired.
Yes, in this world, I'm not sure if you've noticed, seems to be deteriorating in a way. Is that normal?
He looks around. Skies do seem fairly bleak. These buildings here, they're more worn than I remember.
Yes, and it seems we are in quite dire circumstances. So he hasn't told you what you stand accused of?
No, I have no idea, but I promise you this, Miss Bellinger. I will give you the scroll.
Oh, we already have it.
He forces his hands up to his mouth. If by some way you found it, if by some way you've removed it from the place where it was hiding,
Yes.
you must not reveal this to anyone.
Oh, of course not, especially not the Duke, or as you call him, the Prince?
Especially, he calls himself the Prince here, this magnanimous bastard. He will torture me whether I give it to him or not.
Mr. Wellington, what does this symbol mean? And I'll draw on the palm of my hand, just out of kind of angling it away from where the Duke is, the symbol that's on Simon's arm and on the case of the scroll.
He watches you trace the lines and he says, yes, it's the it's an arcane symbol for sleep. It's just a bit of artistry there on the leather, you understand. I'd read it somewhere. I believe in a library in Paris.
I think it's maybe a wee bit more than that.
Yeah?
But I don't know quite what. We're trying to get out of this place, wherever it is we are, but we don't seem to be able to do so. All our efforts to wake up have proved fruitless.
Well, perhaps if you can get me out of here, I'll find a way to get us out.
I will.
Well, yes, we'll do everything that we can, though that's going to be slightly hard when we don't know what we're defending you against, though. I am certain that whatever it is that the Duke or the Prince has come up with is absolute rubbish.
You hear from across the platform, "People of Lausanne, this man stands accused." You turn at the utterance of the Prince's voice, and you can see him far from Wellington, pointing back at your position.
And of what does he stand accused?
He stands there for the moment, then strides forward, and you can feel the pounding weight of his steps on the wood platform as he gets closer. "This traitor has refused to cooperate with the duly assigned officers of this realm. In that, when he was summoned to present himself before the People's Court of Lausanne, he did kick, scream, and protest mightily, and thereby create an uproar in the streets, to wit, causing unnecessary trouble for the officers assigned to conduct him to the court. Such behavior aims at undermining the authority of my rule and represents a challenge to the law of my will. Were he innocent, he would be meek. Were he meek, he would be released in due course. These ancient precepts of my rule being violated, I call for the judge to find him guilty of this charge."
Yes, but why was he summoned to the court in the first place? You are charging him for, I'm assuming, resisting arrest, but what were you summoning him for in the first place? Your charges make no sense. Any man here in the audience, when being dragged away by officers of the court, would certainly resist, especially if they had not been presented with the reason why they were being taken to the court.
You hear the heavy breathing of the judge kind of take over the local din of the crowd. The Prince puts his hands on his hips in almost this mockingly superhero-esque pose. Clearly he's reneged on our deal. He was summoned here by the people of Lausanne and by my will. And when it was found, he was not willing to come to court to present himself. Of course, the court officers had to drag him here, clearly resisting arrest. He looks back at the statue.
Well, I believe it was you, sir, who violated your deal by trying to enforce the terms of your agreement prior to the agreed upon time. Perhaps you were scared of someone driving up a price of some sort, or not being able to get your grubby little hands on a certain something.
His eyes flare in anger at your mention of his grubby hands. He whips around and turns back to the crowd. People of Lausanne, the accused is a foreigner. And you hear them suddenly gasp. And his spirited defenders cannot deny this. There, he points to him, the Englishman stands, living testimony to his guilt. We of Lausanne pride ourselves on our purity of blood, do we not? The crowd begins to agree along with him. It is our strength and our glory, what allows us to feel united under the common purpose of my will. His presence among us is like a cancer, drawing other foreign bodies. He points to each one of you in kind, who must be cut out. The crowd suddenly erupts in a cheer.
Apparently, they'd rather all be speaking German. I do say that loud enough that others can hear it around me.
Make me a power roll. Opposed. Mr. Griffith.
That would be a regular success.
Okay. What over what?
43 under 65.
Okay. You feel something at your throat for a moment. And then the raspy, mechanical voice of the bronze statue comes to life. And it says, "Only court officers and those deemed worthy shall speak at a trial." And after a bit of concern over the next breath you might take, eventually the feeling eases.
Did that statue just speak to us?
Sir, if your only argument is based on his nationality, then you have no argument at all to his guilt.
It's clear the cancer is spreading. He turns back to the crowd. Even their lay people cannot seem to grasp the laws of court. The crowd chuckles for a moment.
Are the laws of court that we are to make unfounded and empty arguments in order to sway the crowd?
Unfounded and empty? He turns back to you.
Well, yes, they in no way relate to any crimes that he clearly didn't commit, because you haven't named a single crime yet.
Really? Other than trafficking and being English, do you have any idea how heavy a crime that is?
So you're changing your words all around, because previously you said that he reneged on an agreement.
Yes, an agreement to provide the scroll at a certain time, which he did not do.
And where is this agreement?
Why?
Do you have a written contract with this man?
He steps over closer towards you. He almost physically imposes himself in your space. He points to Edgar. Now, Mr. Wellington, speak up. Did we not have an agreement to meet at a specific time in a specific place? Edgar slowly shakes his head, very slowly. We agreed that while it was clear your interlopers had driven up the price, that I was willing to pay it, that this meeting at the 7:30 Club was simply a farce? Yes? Edgar doesn't say anything. We had a word agreement between two men. Something that's fairly clear. Miss Bellinger, you do not understand.
Well, that may be the case, but I think there's a bigger criminal here. I would like to accuse you, Mr. Prince or Duke or whoever you are, of murder.
The crowd gasps. You hear someone in the crowd, "Murder?" The entire statue, its cloaked head turns a bit, and it seems to regard the prince for the first time. Very well.
Tell him that he has to prove his innocence.
And You murdered him in an attempt to steal the scroll rather than paying the higher price. Clearly, that is the case here.
Quite a wonderful turn. Although I am not on trial, Miss Bellinger. Mr. Wellington is.
I don't believe that you are fit to accuse this man when you have obviously committed a greater crime.
He turns back to the crowd. People of Lausanne, we accuse the treacherous enemy before us for possession of forbidden knowledge. Who knows what secrets this foreigner hides? Who knows? And yet, hide them he does. This guilty man before us today, seeking only to deceive us, seeking only his own devious advantage, and not the advantage of the prince or his people. He extends his hands back out towards the crowd. Entered our sacred realm, in possession of that only which I, as ruler, may obtain. Why does he plot? What is this concealment? Why hide cunningly what is mine by fiat? There must be some devious reason to do so. He must be punished. For he has secreted this scroll somewhere, for within this very princely realm, like a mine ready to explode beneath our foundations. I call upon the judge to consider these crimes of the accused, and to determine him guilty as charged.
It is only a weak man that seeks to suppress the knowledge of others. Is that what you are seeking out here, to obtain the knowledge of for yourself and suppress the knowledge of others, to suppress the knowledge of these people? Because if they were to gain said knowledge, they may see you for who you really are, an oppressor.
It is my realm, is it not?
I believe should be a realm of the people.
Truly. And fall to chaos then, yes?
Oh, you believe that that the people would simply fall to chaos without you, that they need you?
Yes.
Maybe that's because you have created a system that necessitates that. But if given certain knowledge and abilities and taught, the people would be able to speak for themselves and have more of a say in their ruling, rather than being charged with a crime simply for being arrested. Being arrested in and of itself seems to be a crime here.
He turns back to the judge. What say you? Rule in these matters, so we be done with this farce. So, Miss Bellinger, I would like to give you at least a persuade roll, because I think you've presented a persuasive argument.
Okay. Yes, Maggie was getting very American.
That, ladies and gentlemen, that's how you get the persuade roll. It should be that kind of, you got to invest.
Oh, no, 70 over 20.
Okay. Now, you have the ability to push that roll if necessary. You have the ability to spend luck if you need it or have it.
I mean, I have that much luck, maybe. I don't know if I can spend that much luck.
That is totally up to you.
That would put me really low. Oh boy. I'll push the roll.
Okay. Now, as your keeper, it's very important that I remind you that failed push rolls can be dramatically.
Oh, I know. I'm well aware.
Very well. Then please push the roll. Oh, and tell me how.
Oh, yes. I wish I want to call for a revolution of the people. That this judicial system clearly needs a restructuring. If a man can be guilty for the fact of simply doing nothing other than demanding to know what he has been arrested for. 2 under 20 is an extreme success.
So, the people go from cheering the prince on to getting fairly quiet. And I guess probably, I'd say, Mr. Fraser, given some of your, maybe given some of your background, you have seen a crowd turn on people in certain social circumstances, and you can smell it happening here.
I think you have it, Miss Bellinger. Well done, well done.
The judge raises his hands and points to you directly, Miss Bellinger. Edgar Wellington's chains vanish in a puff of smoke. The prince begins stamping around on stage, furious at what's gone on. Wellington walks kind of humbly over towards the rest of you. You can hear the prince's voice in the background as he's getting closer to one of the corners of the stage, trying in desperation to pull the crowd back into his favor. We've only seen justice partly done today. What of the foreigners who defended their conspiracy, huh? What of them?
Quick, ask the judge to send us home. You're the lawyer, ask the judge to send us home.
He's a statue. I don't know if he has that ability.
Well, he just made Mr. Wellington disappear.
If you dislike us foreigners, we would be happy to leave if we were able to do so.
The statue simply nods to you.
I guess I nod back.
So you're going to exit the stage then? Perhaps stage left?
Thankfully not pursued by a bear.
You begin hastily, but not running, of course, because that would be unladylike. You begin leaving the mob scene, as it were. But the prince continues with the people. And it's pretty clear that maybe 50% of them are just done hearing with what he has to say. And it's fairly clear that 50% of them are still with him for sure.
Yeah, it does take a lot for Maggie to leave that scene because she's so riled up and wants to go back and continue to incite this uprising that she probably looks over her shoulder several times and kind of starts to turn, and I would imagine is turned back away.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll if I see Maggie turning and trying to return to the crowd at all. Miss Ballinger, there's going to be a riot. You do not want to be in the middle of that. Come along. Now's our chance to go.
You're right. I want to be in front of it.
No, you want to be away from it. We might not get another chance. Come on. I know your temper's high and you've done an astonishingly good job here, but we must go now.
Edgar urges you on. We have to get back to my shop as quick as we can.
So I assume we'll follow Edgar back to his shop.
Yeah, he's not much for running per se, but it really isn't more than, say, maybe 5 or 6 steps until the 50% of the mob that is behind the prince begin to come after you. En masse.
You try to move as swiftly as possible and usher Mr. Wellington on himself.
Well, not to go into a full chase scene, I would like to ask a very simple question. Does anyone here have a move of 7?
Maybe.
Yes.
So the mob itself moves with an 8. And so you've had a few steps on them, but those of you with a move of 7 or potentially less, this could potentially happen, I'm going to ask you to make me a dexterity roll because I'd like to see if you can kind of keep ahead of the nipping at your heels.
That is a hard success.
Mine was 59 over 50, which wasn't a success.
So you could push that or you could spend luck.
Shit.
Yeah, I think spending luck's a good idea. Richard will spend 9 luck.
It's interesting, Mr. Fraser, you and Professor Courtney are bringing up the caboose, as it were, in this regard. And you have to duck a few times from sticks and men with brooms and the occasional pitchfork that comes your way. But you do get back to Wellington's shop and you slam the door hard to keep people out. There begins a great tapping and pounding at the door moments later.
Is it a good heavy door?
Oh, yeah.
I'll drag a piece of furniture across it if I need to.
There's a great heavy table that you're fairly certain that you and Mr. Griffith could pull into position, and that door will not be coming open.
Simon, give me a hand here with this.
Already on it, sir. And once the table's up by the door, I'm going to hover by the windows in case anybody tries breaking through. I mean, getting home is not my deal, but stabbing people in the arms is.
Okay. Edgar heads directly for the fridge where the bear was.
Follow along after him. What do we need?
Yes, it's all here.
Mr. Wellington, how do we get out of here? Did we miss something?
I need the bear.
You need the bear. We have this from the bear.
Just stop talking and bring in the bear.
He opens up the fridge and then closes it when he sees that you've been in there. Someone's been in there. And he goes to a couple of cupboards in the back of the area here, and he begins taking out taxidermy pieces of bear. A chest piece, some legs, arms up to maybe the forearm of a bear.
How can I help? What do you need done?
Help me get into them. He puts a bear head on.
What are you doing?
Oh,
All right.
He finishes putting the bear costume on with your help. It looks like a costume, but it also kind of looks like a taxidermied bear.
I think he's mad.
He stands up and on all fours, which he points towards the ceiling, and he begins incanting something. You hear the house shake. You hear it through the rumble of the timbers, and you see these taxidermied bear pieces begin weaving themselves into his skin.
What are you doing?
And the head stretches around and over onto his head.
I'm assuming I make a sanity roll at this point when I see this happening to him.
Oh, yeah. You and him are pretty well face to face.
What is going on? Oh, that's a success. Goodness Lord. Oh, yes, that's a 28 under 47.
It's really scary, but it's all a dream, right? I mean, it's not real, right? There's a bear roar from the back room for the rest of you, which probably is a bit of a startle.
A little help.
Maggie, you see a bear walk out into the front room, walks over to you and puts a paw on your shoulder.
What is this?
You hear Edgar's voice from its mouth. Just head out the back. I'll keep them busy.
I'm not one to question things at this point.
But how do we get home?
Oh, right. The bear turns, almost human-like, towards one of the tables, the table that you and Giles moved, Mr. Fraser. And he palms, sort of, with a clawed hand, or a clawed paw, what looks like a medicine bag almost. He presents it back to you, Maggie, and says, "This is dream dust. It's as quick as exit as you'll get. But, hang on, you might need some bicarbonate the next day. For your head." He hands you a small, kind of brown herbal sack.
So we just take this then?
Yes, just sprinkle it over yourself.
Okay.
One of the windows shatters.
Maggie?
I'll gather all of us around and start sprinkling. Get to sprinkling.
You get sprinkled with some sort of dust. It makes you sneeze. That's the first reaction. It's a heavy pepper, maybe, or a cinnamon. There's a lot of scents in here, and it really makes you sneeze. Your last vision of the Dream Lausanne and Edgar Wellington shop is his shop windows getting broken in, and as these sticks and pitchforks come in, you see a very hairy bear butt as it runs and jumps out the window, meeting the crowd full force. You wake, each one of you, in turn, in a racking fit of hay fever-like sneezes.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
You're all very weak physically. You can feel a weakness as if you'd been lying in your sick bed for some time. Paul is hurriedly trying to help you all. You feel very parched, like you haven't had anything to drink in a long time.
Water, please.
Paul's rushing to each one of you in turn, trying to get you water to sit up. You're all, again, very, very weak. And you're in the common room of the connected suites. And you can see that those of you who are not Mr. Griffith, can see that a fair amount of sundry medical equipment has been set up. There are IV bags and tubes. You each have something in your arm. You think it's an IV of some sort.
How long were we away?
Just rest a moment. You see that Paul seemingly hasn't shaved in a few weeks.
Paul, how long? You seem a little...
You have a beard, man.
Unshaved, yes.
It's been some time. Just take it easy. It's been a few weeks.
That's not helpful, Paul.
I reach up to my face. Do I have a beard as well?
Yeah, a bit. Even Professor Courtney has begun to develop a 5 o'clock shadow, as we would call it here. It's been 15 days.
What?
Roll sanity.
Do I need to roll, since I was vaguely aware of what they were going through?
Yes, you do, because you were not aware of the differences in time.
I should say so. That's a fail.
0-8.
Very nearly a fumble.
It's a success for me.
50.
Well, those of you who failed lose 1 point of sanity as you come to grips with the idea that many, many hours have been lost to whatever happened. What you do find, though, Mr. Fraser, is tucked in your right hand is a leather scroll case.
Oh, well, we managed to bring this through at least.
Yeah, I'm rather thinking that as soon as we've recovered from all of this tonight, we should probably, what is your quaint American phrase? Get the hell out of Dodge?
Yes, I am a little concerned after the way we parted ways with the Duke in, whatever dream world that was, that he may be coming after us, and I have a feeling that he probably knows where we are.
Yes, so, next train out on the Orient Express?
Yes, I think it may be best for us to make our exit sooner rather than later.
I shall make the necessary arrangements immediately, Your Ladyship.
No, you won't.
Paul puts his hand on your chest, Mr. Fraser. You are in no status, and with respect, Lady Elizabeth, neither are you. You will all be under my direct doctoral care. He kind of straightens his collar. At least for a few hours until you can gain your strength.
A few hours, yes, but Paul, we do need to leave as soon as possible. There may be some not so great people coming after us after these events.
Oh, no, I'm aware. Some of them have already come to the door.
What did you do with them?
I simply did what any enterprising young person would do. I availed myself of the objects that I had at my disposal, and I hired the proper people to deal with the problem.
I see you found the suitcase then.
Indeed. It's been a wonder.
Yes, quite.
Not much has been spent, but enough to keep the hotel...
Oh, what?
Just enough to keep the people at bay.
I look under the bed.
This Duke character, whoever he is, has got a lot of pull in town, but you'd be surprised what people can be swayed by when you offer a few sterling around here.
Mr. Mayhaven, I'm most impressed by your resourcefulness, I must say. You're a credit to your profession, man.
Thank you, Mr. Fraser. It felt a little bit better than, say, going for the suitcase with the Thompson in it.
Well, needs must when the devil drives, as they say.
Paul goes kind of into a short explanation of the weeks that have passed. He talks about really three things in direct detail. He says that once Simon went under, that it was probably a few hours before he realized something was terribly wrong. That he couldn't wake him, even through the methods that Simon had given him. He tried slapping and pinching and all sorts of just things that he would normally not do to patients, but that him and Mr. Griffith had agreed upon previously. He didn't try any such things with any of you, at least past the first couple of days. He mentions that, of course, he would have only done such things to the gentlemen as to do something to the ladies would be unprofessional. His concern is twofold, and it really is around the second point. About a week into this journey, several Turkish men, came to the hotel, and they caused an enormous stir downstairs when trying to get into the rooms here. It's proven still by the several pieces of furniture that are sitting against the doors to the suite, which seem to bar anybody from entering or leaving. It was at that point that Paul called the front desk and asked for some assistance. They put him in touch with the American embassy in London through a way of a couple of longer phone calls. And then a few days after that, some folks arrived, and they have been staking out the hotel downstairs, and he said that they've been delivering his food and, of course, all of the nutrients for you guys, which he's made through just a series of medical infusions, is what he's called them. You are all both hungry and tired. It's like literally the worst thing in my mind to ever be, which is exhausted and hungry. But there is food when you're up for it. He is happy to assist you in that regard. He doesn't know what your next step is, but to point 3, he says that the Duke in the paper has begun publishing editorials on foreigners. And the folks here have really gotten whipped up about there being something amiss at the local hotels with some Americans involved. And he doesn't understand it. Like, Paul doesn't understand where it's all coming from.
Yes, well, I think we most certainly should be out of here as quick as we possibly can. We can rest further once we're on the train, but I don't think it's safe to hang around here as long as, or any more than we possibly have to.
I quite agree. Do we know when the next train is? Is it soon?
If memory serves, I shall recall the schedule of the train. Sorry, I'm just looking at the schedule. So it's 7:07 in the morning is the next train, in fact.
What time is it now?
Just looking at the clock in the room, it's about 4 p.m.
Well, the good thing is it allows us to eat and pack.
Might I suggest protein, copious amounts?
Food would be good, and some tea. But also, I think perhaps slowly packing things up as we go so that we can make an exit this evening.
Understood. I'll do my best to begin packing some of your things. Concentrate now on drinking enough water and getting enough to eat. I'll send for some hot food. That'll help. They have some soups here that are phenomenal. At some point, I'll get around to shaving.
Perhaps a broth of some kind for the protein and sustenance.
Sounds like just the thing.
Paul, mind if I ask something? So you said some gentlemen came through the American embassy?
Yeah.
Are they Americans?
Pretty well sure, yeah. One guy sounds like he's from Kentucky.
Could I go speak to them? Could you send them over to me? I need to let them know some information.
Sure. I would just, I'd like you to get a meal in first, but yeah, you'll have time to talk to him, I'm sure. He, heads off to gather food, leaving the five of you with space.
We're going to have to be very careful and keep our eyes sharp. It wouldn't surprise me if the Duke, being a man of some means, will have people watching us and watching the station.
Perhaps we could all don disguises. We could disguise ourselves for boarding the train.
That did cross my mind, but then I thought, well, if we're known to have left the hotel, then there's really only one place we would have gone, so I'm not sure that it would serve any useful purpose disguising ourselves.
And we left the bear costume behind, Miss Maggie.
Well, it would be best if they don't know that we leave the hotel then.
How do you propose we hide the fact that we're leaving the hotel? Climb out through the back window?
Well, that's one way, yes, or possibly the back door. We don't have to leave through the front.
Actually, I have a suggestion for all of you. So, this is a Duke, and as we recall from the other place, he really didn't care for the lower peoples, right? They were just there to serve him. So he doesn't know them. If we were to dress up as servants leaving the hotel out the back doors, like they usually do, by the time they figured out we were gone, we might already be at the station.
I think that's an excellent idea.
We'd have to figure out a way to get our luggage and things to the station.
Well, the Americans who are watching can drive it over there. And if the Turks or anybody want to do anything with them, I have a feeling that the Americans are probably armed.
Are they your people, Mr. Griffith?
I'm going to find out after I finish this food. I need a sandwich.
I wonder. I do have an idea. The train next stops in Montreux, and it's only a half hour's journey or so. Perhaps we could find another way to get to Montreux and pick up the train there.
It's a long time to wait. I don't like being a sitting duck.
Mr. Fraser, you may be better on this than I am. So, could other folks, like the Americans or Paul or whatnot, have our luggage all loaded up on the train here? But then we meet the train further down in Montreux, and since we are the targets, that at least allows us, we don't have to carry everything with us besides any necessities of dealing with folks.
Yes, that might work. If your American associates are able to look after our luggage until the morning, and then they place it on board the train, we can head now, get a taxi or something, I suppose, or perhaps there's a smaller branch line that would take us to Montreux, and then we pick up the main train then. But I think the idea of leaving the hotel by perhaps the staff entrance, if we could find some way of disguising ourselves as staff, then we can do that. Head out that way, find another means of transport to Montreux, and then wait there through the night in a small bed and breakfast or something.
What about maybe bicycles or maybe a bus? Do they have local buses?
I'm sure they do. It's the only question is what time the buses run at, and I think to cycle to Montreux might be a little bit of a stretch. It's half an hour on a train. I don't know how long it would be on a bicycle.
That's not a bad idea, Mr. Fraser. We can get out of town without being seen. Pick it up at another stop.
I think we should leave separately, and if we do this, yes, maybe meet up again a little way out of town. Otherwise, people will work out that there's the five of us and may come after us.
Well, perhaps we leave in two groups then.
Precisely.
Okay.
Okay, so I think our plan is to get somebody to arrange our luggage to be put aboard the train tomorrow morning. In the meantime, we make our way down and out through a servant's entrance in the hotel. I don't know if we're going to be able to find some servant's clothing to wear, or whether that actually even matters, in two groups, and get some alternative means of transport to take us to Montreux, where we can spend the night and then catch the train there at 7:30 tomorrow morning.
I mean, you do the important things, right? You have something to eat. Each of you, in turn, probably about a half an hour or so after eating, feels quite a bit physically better. You're not sure how long. Well, I mean, it's probably been 2 weeks since real sustenance, but whatever infusions Paul has been giving you seem to have given you at least something to steady yourself on. Each of you have probably lost anywhere between 2.5 to 5 pounds. You can feel that in your clothes when you wear them. There's definitely room for a holiday meal or two now, which is a wonderful thing. But barring that, Paul assists you with sneaking out. He, working through the American contacts that he has in the lobby area, are able to gather some staff uniforms. The American embassy contacts that are down there, he tells you, Mr. Griff, he can get a message to them, but they're not going to come up here and talk to you. They need to keep neutral in all of this, especially here. Local government and the Swiss government is very particular about them playing too heavy a hand. So if you have a message you want me to pass them, I can do that. But barring that, they're not going to make themselves available to you.
I'm going to write out a message, and the message will be moving on. And I am also putting a recommendation that the Duke be dealt with.
Okay. He tells you he'll get your message to them. Richard, you find this suitcase in your suite. It has been opened, obviously. There is a fair bit of cash missing. It looks like it's probably about between 250 to 300 pounds sterling is gone.
Ouch.
Mm-hmm.
What do we think that takes the total down to?
I think you're probably down to 9,500.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, you're probably about down to 9,500. So if we track that now, you'll have that for the future. You have been staying at a very nice Swiss hotel for 2 weeks. And so that's probably part of it. And you have no idea how much money he handed the Americans to basically protect you.
Worth every penny.
But you get out of town. You're able to leave in a couple of different groups. And you're actually able to find, if you want them, a couple of folks who will drive you just down the road. Because remember, it's not that far, fundamentally speaking. There are a couple of autos who are willing, if you want to pay, they'll take you to Montreux. Obviously, they would be single journeys, right? So 2 people or 3 people, whatever it is. But Lady Elizabeth is right. You don't find a bus that goes there at this time.
It is, in fact, 29.5 kilometers.
Yep. But you're able to get scuttled out basically under the cover of darkness to arrive there in the morning, or in the early morning to arrive there before the train would stop at the station. And the Paul tells you that he'll go with your luggage and get on the train with the luggage. So that way he doesn't have to be part of one of these car trips. That, and he sheepishly admits that the Americans will probably take him to the train station and thus protect him.
I suggest to him as well that he does as I am doing and not shave his beard off for the time being.
Oh, are you sure?
Just, well, it affords a little subterfuge in terms of recognizing us.
Well, I suppose if I'm a doctor, I'm allowed a beard, yes?
I don't mean permanently. I just mean for a day or so.
I guess I'd gotten used to it. I was so busy doing anything else but shaving. You understand?
Well, you look very dashing in it. It suits you. Keep it if you will.
Paul smiles. Well, I will see you in Montreux then.
Yeah, so Mr. Fraser is also not going to shave his beard temporarily.
international spy James Robert Fraser, coming to a television series near you. All right, so you guys get loaded up. Should I assume that Maggie and Richard are going together? Should I assume?
Yeah, probably.
I think that would be reasonable.
And then, Mr. Griffith, are you going alone or are you going with the professor?
I will go with the professor. I mean, otherwise, if I bike across the country, it would be interesting, but...
I mean... So, early morning Montreux is sleepy and quiet. And it isn't but probably a few baguettes or cups of coffee later until the Orient Express rolls into the station there. And you've had not a peep of anyone or anything that looks out of sorts. This all looks pretty run-of-the-mill.
I have one thing I want to say to y'all. I have a feeling we are going to be seeing this Duke character again.
Yes, I feel right.
Almost certainly.
And it strikes me as well, Simon, that if there's one person here in Switzerland that's looking for parts of this, we may well find that there are others elsewhere.
I'm sure there are, but this one is going to be persistent. I have a feeling he will follow us in one way, shape, or form, and I have a feeling there will be bloodshed.
Yes. What might we do to prepare ourselves? Is there anything that yes, I don't know. I mean, you have that gun, and but we're all in separate carriages. I mean, I don't know. This is not my area at all.
Forewarned is forearmed at the very least, Professor Courtney. And we all know how desperately he wants to get his hands on this. So I suggest we keep our eyes and our ears open, we watch each other's backs, and we don't go wandering off on our own.
I thought I was sharing a cabin with the professor.
Yes, but not everybody does. I mean, what would happen to Maggie if the Duke was to go after her? I mean,
Miss Maggie is a force unto herself.
that is true.
But this is what I was saying. I think it would be best if none of us goes anywhere alone from now on. We always travel in at least pairs, just to be on the safe side.
Fraser, are you able to bunk with Paul, perhaps?
Of course, yes.
And then perhaps put the men on the outside and the women on the inside in their adjoining cabin? You know, they're not bunking together, but they have a suite. You follow what I'm saying?
I do.
But that way, the ladies will not have any shared walls with anyone who is not of our party.
I don't think Mr. Griffith, your ladyship, is for a moment suggesting sharing a room, merely that the two central rooms are taken by yourself and Miss Bellinger, while Mr. Griffith and Mr. Courtney take one end room, and Mr. Maverhaven, Dr. Maverhaven, and myself take the other.
Exactly.
To be clear, Paul is not actually a doctor. He is he's almost a doctor.
Well, after the last 2 weeks, we can call him a doctor.
Mr. Maverhaven.
It will be part of his dissertation, no doubt.
I've had an idea. I'm concerned that this scroll that we've picked up and the arm are going to be stolen. Perhaps we should try and avail ourselves of a mannequin or something that we could maybe detach the arm from, and we could make it look like it's hidden, like we've tried, but really do a really good job of the Maggie's arm. I mean, we wouldn't want to lose that. I've no idea what that would do to her. And
I wouldn't want to lose Maggie's arm.
Well, I was just thinking that the mannequin arm, the arm should travel with us and not in the luggage that Paul is taking. I was thinking almost along the lines of you that it will certainly, if he knows that if he finds out or found out that I had the arm, it would definitely be a target.
Which arm is it that Maggie's got?
It'd be the left arm.
And the other thing as well, we have this copy scroll. Perhaps we can put that in the case of the real one, and put the real one in the case of the fake one. And again, we can make it look like the copy is hidden. And yes.
The train arrives.
I think you're onto something there. But perhaps a slight modification to your
Time to roll out, everyone. We can finish discussing plans on the train.
Your ladyship. Although after the sprightly manner in which you made your way to the taxidermist when pursued by that crowd, I think it may be myself that's asking your arm for assistance.
Yes, well, I do get rather a lot of exercise. So, shall we?
The train doors open, and the members of the staff begin arriving, and you see about 2 cars down, Paul step out of the Orient Express. And he waves.
Mr. Fraser, can you arrange for somebody to get a mannequin before the train leaves, do you think? You're very resourceful.
I don't think we have time for that, Professor.
I'll speak to somebody and see what I can do.
It's 7 o'clock in the morning. There will be no shops open. Perhaps in the next town in which we stop.
I know sometimes you get a decent amount of time, but it looks like it stops for 2 minutes in Montreux, so yeah, no chance.
Yeah, it does. It stops. Paul greets you and, gets you, tells you that he's gotten your cases and whatnot settled back into your rooms. He's had a bit of a chat with the staff here, and he's tried to arrange things so that way they're a little bit more... that we're in a little bit better sections, but he confesses, I am starving for a good breakfast. I wasn't able to eat anything, so
Oh, for goodness sake! I'll see to that. You go and make yourself comfortable. I think you've done quite enough. I'll go and get you something to eat.
I do appreciate that, but I was just thinking that now that we're kind of all back in on our own reconnaissance after this, after we leave, we want to just avail ourselves of the saloon car here. I mean, the food on the express is amazing.
Yes, of course. Yes, why not? Let's have a good hearty breakfast.
You guys get a look into your cabins here, and everything for the most part, barring anything that you would normally set up, is there. And so it's configured, not necessarily in a way that you would have it, but for those of you who are wanting a specific order of investigators, it's fairly easy for you to switch things around. The staff here make all accommodations as necessary.
I am going to open up the trunk, and I'm going to slide the suitcase I've been carrying with me back into its false bottom. And then I ask, does anyone want me to stick anything else down in here? You are all being worried about arms and scrolls and whatnot.
Yes, why don't we put the real scroll in there and in the fake case, and put the fake scroll in the real case, and then we can maybe just put that in somebody's bag.
I think that's a good idea. Right? Let us hide the real scroll well. Let us also hide the fake scroll, but not so well. So if they find anything, they find the fake scroll.
Yes, that's what I said, I believe.
Yes.
Okay,
well,
okay.
It is. Aye. So I'm agreeing with you, Professor.
I do believe it's happened.
You can pop that down in your diary.
So the real scroll will go in the fake case into the bottom of the false bottom of the trunk.
Yes.
Why can't we just put the fake scroll in the fake case and put that into the trunk? Why does it have to be in the real case? They won't know the difference if they haven't seen both scrolls. But we will know the difference.
How different from the real case is the fake case?
Actually, the cases are fairly well identical, made by the same person.
So it's a bit of an exercise in futility, isn't it?
Yeah, doesn't matter then, yeah. Are we right in thinking that the fake scroll is just a copy of the real scroll that's been aged up to look old, or is it like a translation thing?
No, it does seem to be that way. If you look through the case of the with the fake scroll in it, It does seem like it's just been aged up. At least that's what Lady Elizabeth has been able to deduce at this point.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'm glad we've got that settled.
Me too. So you all head to a later breakfast. The train, moments after you were all settled for the moment, the train begins its way on to the next stop, which will eventually go to Milan. And you have breakfast. So you're quite comfortable, quite high, sitting in these traditional high back chairs that the Orient Express offers. Mr. Fraser, you're probably at least an hour or so out from the next stop. But you also know that you will likely be soon changing countries after that. You are going to dip into Italy soon. And so I'm mentioning this because Mr. Fraser would know that you'd have to have your passport prepared because they're going to come on the train and check passports.
They'll have done that between France and Switzerland as well, won't they?
Yeah, they did, but we glossed over it last time, and it is part of the journey, and we shouldn't gloss over it.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are in your high back chairs, beginning to enjoy a nice cup of tea and all the breakfast items that the Orient Express has to offer. You can feel yourself almost slump a bit into these chairs. They're absolutely comfortable. You'd gotten a little bit used to this level of service and quality. And while the hotel in Lausanne was nice, and the Bristol in Paris was exceptional, there's nothing like this train. You've come to that conclusion. There's a lot of chatter here from the folks who are also eating. There's many people. There's probably a good extra 10 or 15 people here in the dining car this morning. Maggie, you see a waiter, a member of staff, pass you, going towards a table that has an occupant at it, just a lone person. Why don't you make me a listen roll?
That is an extreme success.
You hear the waiter say, "Will Monsieur be dining alone today?" And this person, you hear their voice up over the din of the train and the crowd, says, "No, I think I will eat with my friends."
I knew it.
And you know the voice before they stand up. And the man that stands up is the Duke. So thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you next week, where we can entertain you and further our story along the Orient Express.